Hi everyone, welcome back. So today we are talking about this book here. And this is actually a Sunday Times #1 bestseller. Most of you guys listening might know Stephen Bartlett. He's a dragon, he's the podcaster, the Diary of a CEO, and this is his book, The 33 Laws of Business and Life. Yeah, it's a good thick book, it's a good read. If you haven't read this book, I would definitely recommend it. Just as a book full of generally good advice about doing business, networking. There's a little bit about influence in there as well. It's a really good read. I must admit, I really enjoyed reading this book. I am a big fan of Stephen Bartlett, though. That's maybe why I enjoyed reading the book. If you like the podcast, The Diary of a CEO, you'll definitely like the book. Highly recommend it. I'm just reading the back of the book. This is not a book about business strategy. Strategy changes like the seasons. This is a book about something much more permanent. And he goes on to talk about these are the fundamental laws that will ensure excellence. Yeah. Honestly, great book. Now, the one thing that I've taken from this book, this isn't the first time I've heard this, but the one thing that I think you will learn from this book is embracing failure. It's a leadership lesson in embracing failure. Failure is not a bad thing. I think the quote is from Thomas Edison, who says, and I'm not sure whether this is 100, 1,000 or 10,000. If you Google this, you will find different versions of this quote. But the quote goes something like this. When he was trying to invent the light bulb, he failed 100 times or 1,000 times to fail the light bulb, to create the light bulb. So the quote goes something like this from Thomas Edison. I didn't fail 1,000 times. I learnt 1,000 ways not to do it. And it's a completely different mind shift when it comes to thinking about failure. Is failure the end of everything? Is it a disaster? Or is failure just one of those steps in life that we all have to get used to because we all fail? Whether it's in business or in life in general, we're all going to fail at some point. How do we embrace that failure when it happens? And most of all, how do our leaders embrace us when we fail? Do they treat us like, horrible people for failing? Or do they embrace the failure and hope we learn from it and do better next time? So yeah, he talks quite a lot in this book about failure. And leaders fail fast and they fail often, I think is a quote of what he says. Failure is a good thing. He goes on to sort of talk about the idea that if you're like a business entrepreneur with this new great idea, but you don't know how it's going to work yet, you have to fail, and you have to fail quickly and often so you learn how not to do it. And eventually, after X many failures, you will learn how to do it. Yeah. And he goes on to talk about all of the great sort of influential leaders that we might be familiar with, from Elon Musk, Bill Gates, Richard Branson, for example. All of those guys embrace failure. Let's try something, fail, right, it doesn't work, quickly move on to the next idea. Does that work? No, it fails. Okay, move on to the next one. Yeah. Failure is also, I suppose, the ultimate teacher for us in our lives. When we fail, if we are of the right mindset, I believe we're going to learn an awful lot from that experience. Failure teaches us more than our victories and anything that good in your life you remember, but failure teaches you a lot more. That's my personal view, I think. I'm a little bit unsure about, I suppose, the next generation of people who don't appear, and this is just my personal opinion about 20 somethings, because it shows how old I am. I suppose. Speaking like my dad used to, all those 20-year-olds. But I do believe that, especially with the use of modern technology, I don't think they're as resilient as, say, my generation when it comes to failure. I'm not sure they know how to be vulnerable and treat vulnerability as a strength, not a weakness. Yeah. Anyway, if you haven't read this book, I'm going to suggest you read it again. If you're a leader and manager in a team, the one thing I would like you to take from this book is that if you manage a team that celebrates failure, if you build a culture that embraces failure, then I think you will become not just a good leader, a good manager, but a great leader and a great manager. Don't punish failure. Reframe it as progress towards your goal. Okay? I'm going to leave you with some key takeaways from the book about failure. Failure is inevitable, but it's also an essential learning point. Resilience is really, really important. If you stop doing things just because you fail, you will never progress and become a better person. Vulnerability, saying I failed, is not showing weakness. Okay, it's actually going to foster trust amongst your team. If you hide your failures away, that creates a really, really bad working relationship. Okay, so create a culture that embraces failure. And finally, reframe failure as progress, another step on your journey towards success. Okay? The more you fail, the more you learn, and the more you learn, the better you become as a person. So, that's my key takeaway from the Diary of a CEO and the 33 Laws of Business and Life. See you next week.